All right, guys, I want to welcome you to our fantastic new RMS system. We love it. You guys are considered our super users. So right now, after training today, I would really appreciate if you guys go back and just play with the system. You don't have to do it every day, all day. When you have downtime, likely a lot of you don't, but when you have a little bit of free time, go into the system, look at it. We do have live CAD data being fed into the system now. So if you have your incident in Firehouse, you can complete it, then you can pull it up in Elite and try to complete it in Elite with what you just did in Firehouse. So you will be able to see the same exact calls in the system today. We do have Image Trend as the vendor for this product, so our trainer is Rich. I've been saying this every day. I'm mad at him because he took a promotion, so he will no longer be our direct contact when it comes to the training aspect. But he did bring two lovely people with him, so we have Katie and Laura, so they will do introductions here in a minute. But I at least wanted to welcome everybody. I'm going to turn it over to Rich. He's going to do the training this morning. I'm going to pop in throughout the training just to kind of focus on what Mesa does specific with the system versus kind of what Firehouse looks like today. With any new software, we lose some capability that we have today in Firehouse, but we gain positives with this system. It does look newer, fresher, it flows better, but I do want your guys' feedback being in the field as to how we could make it even look better, because we can move the fields around, we can make the flow look better for you guys, so that's what I really want back from you in the field is that kind of input, to let me know how it looks, how it works. Firehouse is very antiquated. We're trying to capture the same data in this new system, but we just want this to be able to work for you in the field. I will turn it over to Rich. He can now take over. I'm going to sit down. But if you guys have questions throughout the training, please ask. I will jump up. If it's Mesa Direct or system, we will answer your questions as we go, so you don't have to hold them to the end. Ask as we go.
Welcome. My name's Rich. I'm one of the educator, or was an educator with Image Trend. I've been with Image Trend since April of 2019. Started as an educator, that's where I was. I recently just took a promotion, as Sherry was saying. She loves it. She encourages me to do things like that. I am now the advisor for all of LA. So LA County, LA City, I am their advisor for all their EMS and fire. So I took that promotion within the company. So I did the initial training out here back in September, got things up and running, worked a lot with the admins for 3 days to show them how they can make those changes. So when you guys come back to them and say, hey, it'd be really cool if we could see this, or can we move this here, or can we have these options, they know how to do all that stuff. So they don't have to call me and have me do it. If they don't know it, then they're going to call me. She's got my personal cell, so she's, I'm sure, going to call me at 3 a.m. when you guys make a request. So a little background on myself, 23 years EMS and fire on the street. I recently retired December of 20. This is my retirement plan, is to do this for now. So I'm going to let that other money sit there and invest for a while so I can really whoop it up when I get older. So I do have Katie Johnson and Laura Christ with me. They are new to the education department, new to Image Trend. Laura will give you a little bit of background. She was a system admin for one of our agencies that we had. So she knows the program really well. Katie is picking up on a very fast pace. They are both impressing me this week. So they've been doing some teaching and I absolutely love it. So pretty informal what we're going to talk about today. So like Sherry was saying, you got questions, please ask, okay? I'm going to go through the technical side of what is Image Trend, and then we're going to get actually into a run, and I'm going to be able to kind of explain. Those processes questions, that's why the admins are here, because they're able to answer the process. I've been in it for 23 years. I know processes, and I kind of know the gist of the workflows, and every agency is different, but I can share my opinion on it, but really they're the ones that are talking about the workflow and what they want to see out of your documentation. So that's why they're here to answer those questions. If it's technical, we'll be able to answer that for you, okay? So feel free to speak up and ask about it. So what you're going to see is most of you have already tried to log in, right? Has anybody used this system anywhere else or anything? Okay, so this is all brand new for most of you anyways. So what we have is a web-based, we're not supposed to talk about the field yet, but it's coming. We don't talk about the future. But at some point, you guys may see another application which has a blue background, which is what we call Elite Field. What that is the offline version. So you can literally log in, do all your documentation without having any internet whatsoever. So you can take the tablet into that basement, into that commercial building that has no internet connection, log in, and actually do your documentation right at patient side and right on the scene. You can do that if you don't have any internet, okay? For now, you guys are going to be using the website, okay? This has to have internet. You guys will have shortcuts on the tablets. You will have them. I think they're on this computer. That's how you got logged in today. So that's how you do it. All individual logins, so you don't share logins. You all have your individual logins. You're going to see this one for now until EMS does come. We don't talk about the future. You're going to put in your username, and you're going to put in your password. If for some reason you try and you can't get logged in, you'll get that warning box that says, don't recognize the username, doesn't recognize the password. Try again, right? You can try a second, a third time. You can try up to 6 times. After you try the 6th time and you fail, it's automatically going to flip a switch in your user account that regardless if you use that forgot your password link and reset your password, you're not going to be able to log in at all whatsoever. You're going to have to contact the admins. They're going to have to go into your user account and flip that switch back so you can get logged in, okay? So you have 6 tries. If you can't remember it after 3, use the forgot your password link, okay? One already tried it this morning. Really, it pops up a box. I think it answers, you have to answer a couple questions. I think it's email address, username, and your last name, I think is what it was. And what that does is actually sends you a hyperlink. It sends you an email into your city account, your email. Click on that link. You can reset your password. You can get logged in, okay? Any problems with logging in, get a hold of your admins. They can help you with that, okay?
Is there a warning at like the 4th, 5th, and 6th time saying, hey, this is about to happen?
There is not. So you have to keep track of how many times you've tried.
So I'll expect an email from you. Then you've locked yourself out,
Not
John.
for me, it's for somebody else. Yeah.
If you've tried twice and it doesn't work, don't let it get to that 6th. Just try twice. I know, but try twice, do your password. So when you guys, again, are my super users for testing, and you will also be assisting in training the additional field staff, because we do not have the budget to bring everybody in here for training. So you guys will be assisting in training. Kind of put that out there. Don't even tell them you have 6 tries. Say, hey, after 2 tries, hit your forgot password. Just don't even tell them there's 6 attempts out there. Second time, hit your reset password or forgot password and do it that way. So that'll be the best bet. If people do it, they're going to lock themselves out. Then we'll address it at that point. But
And really, if it's the middle of the night, captains and things like that, just log in. They'll be under your login. I try not to do that, but unless you really want to call Sherry at 3 o'clock in the morning. If not, call me. I'll call her because I have no problem calling Sherry at 3 o'clock in the morning. So
we won't be able to change people's passwords in the field?
not at this point. That can be a decision that we discuss. We don't, you guys, at this point you have, for those, have captain's level permissions, and then we have a firefighter engineer permissions group. When we make that decision, if our super users, we could potentially give you that capability because you're going to be that 24-hour accessible, which we are not. So we will discuss that to see if we can limit maybe just password.
Yeah.
So we can add that in your permission
There's certain things
group.
with permission objects. It's a pretty long list
Yeah.
of things that we can give you individual rights to as a captain. And the firefighters, engineers, things like that, we can limit theirs as well. So we can do it for each individual group, and we could give you access to account details and literally show you guys if they do end up locking themselves out. You just go into their user account, click on this button here, they can go through it, okay? So we can give you that access as whether or not they're going to do that at some point, okay?
Can we take a step back here
Yep.
just for a second? What is this replacing that we currently use?
Firehouse.
Firehouse.
I don't know anybody that does Firehouse at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Please don't tell me that. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean,
Which is fine.
Also, is the reason why this is individualized to passwords, or rather anybody could open up Firehouse and then the documentation where you put in who's the documenter?
We'll talk about that inside this document. Once I get into the system, we're going to talk about that piece.
And this is also web-based
Because there's a tracking piece
versus
with it.
Firehouse's desktop. So when you log in to your system, the city system, we have it where you can just automatically open up Firehouse. But because this is web-based, you will have to launch that URL, and you'll have to log in each time. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we'll talk about why it's important on who's logged in. We'll talk about that.
and real quick too, I didn't introduce, but our project manager for this project is Clint Potts with the city IT. He actually just entered an incorrect password, and it did actually give him a warning in red that said he has 5 attempts left. So it will, they may very well try the full 6 attempts at that point. But if they do, we'll just address that. And if we give you super users access just to change or reset that password for them, then we can do that. But it will give you that warning that you have X number of attempts left. So thank you, Clint, for showing that to me. Jeff, reset my password.
All right, so once you get signed in, you're going to see this page right here. Okay, this is the data privacy page. Basically, what this is saying is you're agreeing that you're not going to share the information that you see inside this system. Okay, there could be eventually at some point there's going to be some patient identifiable information beyond here. You have to agree to this. If you click no, you're going to work on your sign-in speed because it's going to kick you back to the sign-in. Okay. I'm down to about 8 seconds. I know Clint's down to less than 3 because he cheats and copies his password and just pastes it in there. But I'm down to about 10 seconds for me to be able to log back in again. So always click yes. Once you get into the system, this is what it looks like. Okay. This is the main page. This is what we call the dashboard. Okay. These announcements that are out here can be changed pretty quickly. Okay. What these are for is to let you know. Maybe we made a change, right? We moved a field, we added a field, we changed some things. We want you to make sure that we notify you of the documentation. They can also do this by permission groups. So if you have like mandatory captains meetings and things like that, they can put, we have a captains meeting in 2 weeks, and only send it to the captains that are logged in. So once you get logged in, only the captains are going to see it, nobody else sees it, okay? So this is just kind of the, hey, heads up. Here's what's coming down the road, or, hey, we want to let you know about this type of thing, okay? And she's creating one right now. So if I refresh my screen.
So I just added the welcome to image trend. And I spelled trend wrong because I typed it too fast. Yeah. But you can see my post date 11/4 by me. Like, it's that quick. I can do it now. It's going to post if. So if we want something for that oncoming 7 a.m. shift, I can get it posted right before you guys log in. You're going to see any new messages.
All right, so across the top, we're going to talk about these buttons up here real quick before we get into the documentation. This, where it says Mesa Fire and Medical, if I open this up, depending on your permissions, you may see more here. You guys in the room right now probably aren't going to see anything right now. If you have access to other agencies, it's just your agency on this site right now, but there's talks, maybe down the road that Gilbert and Queen Creek and things like that might combine under the same system because you all work together, that they could have agencies on here, and if you work for them or you have access to their system, you will see an agency drop down here that you can switch to go to a different agency to do some documentation for them, okay? With the same login, you'll be able to log in to those different agencies if you have different agencies on your site. Incident, this is where we're going to go to later, but I'll talk about it real quick. Here's where you're going to go find your fire calls, okay? Right now, like Sherry said, you guys have live calls coming into your system right now from your CAD. So if a call was to drop right now, it would show up in here immediately, okay? So you guys will have your records in here. So if you are out on that working fire, you could really open this up and start your documentation while you're out on the scene, because somebody's going to do some form of documentation, right? And we'll talk more about what you can add and things like that to the run. But you can see view existing, and you can also look at the CAD that's coming in, okay? If for some reason CAD is down right now, there is a way that you guys could create it, but right now we don't have that turned on right now, okay? As soon as CAD goes back up, they're going to import and drop all those calls, then you'll see your report in here, okay? So if you're not finding it right away, CAD might be down there, unable to send the file. When they come back up, then you'll see it in here, okay? Next one over, these next two, resources and tools. You guys aren't going to see anything in here, but what those are used for is more of the background stuff. So your vehicles and call signs, your zones and districts, your other information that will kind of give you options in some of those drop downs inside the documentation. So if there's things that you guys are seeing, hey, it'd be really nice if I had the option of documenting a fall from a volcano, right? It's been dormant for quite a while. Don't worry, it's not going to happen. But if you guys see options like that, or if you say, hey, when we're putting in our incident type, I have to go through all the 100s, 200s, 300s, 400s to get to what I'm looking for. Sherry has done it recently, and she's probably going to do it some more, that she can run a report in Firehouse to say, what are my top 10 incident types that we go on? She can take those options and put them at the top of the list. So if there's things that you guys see, something like that, let her know, because they can move things around in here and put it towards the top so you're not having to search through a bunch of them to try and find what you're looking for, okay? They can move those things around, and they happen pretty instantaneously. As soon as you let her know, she logs in, she changes it, you sync up and refresh your screen, you're going to see those changes, okay? Community, you guys have access to Help in University. What that is basically anything that our system can do, we show you how to do it. So over on the left-hand side is all written information. So if you want to look at it, a step-by-step process, that's all written information. At 2:30 in the morning, if you're having a hard time sleeping, you can definitely click on these webinars and videos, and you can watch the video version of it, okay? If you're having a hard time sleeping, I recommend underneath permits, there's an RDL editor template builder, okay? That's one that I did. 35 minutes long. I guarantee after 15 minutes, you're out cold, okay? I almost fell asleep doing the presentation, okay? That's how riveting of information that is, okay? But this is where you can have those new people as well, is come in here and watch how do they get logged in, how do they do basic documentation. We have videos for that in here that you can have them watch that, okay? And what I can do is actually when I open up the video, I have a URL across the top. What we can do is actually take that URL and place it in a message on the dashboard. So when they log in, we need you to watch this video. They click on the hyperlink, it's going to open up that video and they can watch it, okay? So that's things that we can do within the system. But again, remember, permits, RDL editor, sleep like a baby, I guarantee it. Over here on the right-hand side, here's the inbox. So this works kind of like your Outlook and your email address or emails that you have now, okay? This is only internal in Elite.
I got one more question. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Can you go back to the announcements thing?
Yep.
So Sherry made the change to the correct spelling, and I refreshed, and so I have the correct spelling, but you don't.
He didn't. He
I didn't
refreshed
refresh.
now.
You
He
always have to refresh to
Yes.
get the newest information, or is it, so essentially we're not just logging into this thing and leaving it open forever?
You can. I mean, we set it where you guys can have it open for 600 minutes, but usually if there's a change to documentation or to the run form or something like that, they'll throw out an announcement, whether it's via email or whatever. Hey, we made this change, make sure you refresh your screen, right? Because if I do have it open for, I think we set it for 600 minutes, that it won't log you out. If it's still open, just refresh the screen, you'll see the change. Because what it does is it actually pulls that information into the cache browser, and it stores it there. Until you refresh that, it's not going to bring in that new information, okay? So the inbox, what that's going to be used for is you can send messages back and forth, but as captains and things like that, if you're going to be reviewing calls to say, you know, we're out on a scene, I'm going to let the rookie document, I'm going to review that call, I can actually send a message back to that rookie, hey, your narrative really isn't the greatest. I want you to add more information here. You can actually send a message from the incident to say, hey, I need you to look at this. When they get that message, they're going to get a hyperlink right to that call, so they don't have to go find it. They can just click on it. It's going to open up that run, and they can add an addendum or change it, whatever the process may be. They can make those changes. They don't have to go find that call. It'll open it right up from this mail. No,
I'm
you're
going to be a
good.
pain in the ass today.
No, ask.
Is that information stored somewhere for record keeping? Like if the call is subpoenaed, that the first call, it was written poorly, and then you're suggested to...
There are some tracking pieces with this.
There's the addendum that you can do to
Yep.
the narrative to show it.
So I think the process...
Just this informal, like, hey, I was looking, just part of the...
I kind of think I know where you're going with this. Be careful what you say in here because this is all data, right? So if they really wanted to subpoena, hey, I want to see if any messages were sent about this, they could technically have a subpoena. If you have a good lawyer, they're going to know the system, and they're going to say, hey, I know you guys have an internal inbox. I want to see if any messages went back and forth about this. So be careful about what you write, right? Because it can all come back and bite you because now it has become data in the system that can be tracked. So FYI, it's out there.
So this is maybe kind of more for Sherry. In that other EPCR system we have there's a similar message capability. What's going to be the preferred way of communicating something with you or the other administrators? Because out in the field, it's kind of like, right, it's easier to just send an email or make a phone call.
Right.
Or now do I have to learn this and then go back to this to get the answer? You know, it's like points of contact.
Right. So in the big picture, we can leave the communication the way it is today. This is just another option. I mean, I will have my elite up all day that I'm in the office. If you're out in the field right now and you want to send me a note, this could be the quicker way versus going out to your email and sending an email. This could be a quicker way to shoot me something to say, hey, I'm having a problem. Can you look at this? So it's just another option to communicate. But how you're comfortable communicating today, you can continue to do that. Phone calls, emails through city email, through Zoe. I mean, I get Zoe notifications too. So whatever you're comfortable with, this is not going to become the first way. It's just another way.
It's not a replacement for anything. It's just another
just an
option
additional
for you guys
source.
to use. Okay? It's there. It's already in the system. If you want to use it, great. If you don't, it is what it is. Next to the inbox, if I was to have a message in here, I know there's a message in there that I haven't looked at because there's going to be a red circle right next to the inbox, and it's going to tell me how many messages are waiting there, okay? So you will get kind of a notification. There's going to be a red circle there. To get back to the home screen, I will tell you that this image trend delete, if I left click on that, it's going to bring me back to the dashboard, okay? So if you're in the system, you don't know where you're at, and you see this image trend delete, left click on it, it'll bring you back to the dashboard, okay? Next to that should say your name. So if you're logged in, and we'll talk about why you should be logged in and why somebody else should be logged in. We'll talk about that here in a minute. About Elite basically just tells you what version you're on and when you were last updated. This probably means nothing to you guys. It means everything to us at ImageTrend because I know that you guys were last updated on 10.13 and your last update was the 21.10, and that number one that's sitting there was a hotfix that we already pushed out because when we sent out the update, it may have broke something. We had to go back and fix it and send out the hotfix to make sure everything works, okay? That's what that is. And then the next option is log out. Self-explanatory. It's log out, okay? So when you guys go to do your calls, what you're going to do is you're going to log in. You're going to get this screen. What you're going to do is go to the incident tab. You're going to go to view existing fire. You are now going to see your calls in here, okay? So you can see the last one was today at 7:23 this morning. There was a call, okay? It's in the system. You may not see, based on permissions, you may not see every single call in here. You're probably only going to, well, captains, I think, are going to review. Are they reviewing others as well?
They potentially,
Potentially, if you guys are reviewing calls,
Your firefighter
you may see
engineers.
other calls that you weren't attached to. Okay, but for the most part, firefighters at the basic level are only going to see the calls that their crew's on. Okay, that's all they're going to see. Okay, this does default to the last 2 weeks. So you're going to see the calls for the last 2 weeks. If you're looking for a specific call, you know what day it was on. You can actually change those dates and look for that specific day to narrow down that list, okay? You can also search up here if you're looking for a specific one. So if I'm looking for well, now it's being goofy again. You can search for an apparatus. So if you're looking for, what's an engine, 201? 201. So if you're looking for engine 201 calls, you can come up here and switch this to contains, do E201. Anything that has engine 201 in it, those calls will show up in your list, okay? So you can kind of use this as a tool to kind of downsize to look at the calls that you're trying to look for. They can have different lists here as well. So this is acting goofy again, but there's a bunch in there by
by battalion.
by battalion.
Battalion 201, A shift, BC, 202, ABC.
So you do have a drop-down list that you can look for just specific ones that are assigned to this certain battalion, okay? Sherry does right
Yes,
now, but if you
yes.
guys are looking for... So this view here can be either public or private, okay? Public means everybody can see it that gets logged in here, okay? You can also have private views.
Because if I make it private, then you can't see it. I can only see it. So I would have to walk you guys through how to create that so that you would see it only.
So that
we
may
can
come
do that.
at some point, but we put some in there for you guys to be able to test until you go live. But if it's something, kind of think about that in the back of your mind. If it's something that you want before you guys actually go live in the system, think about it. She can help you. They'll walk you through that, okay? So we have some buttons over here on the right-hand side of a call. So you can see each call has the same options. This paper clip, this is, I don't need to go into the run to add attachments or do my addendums. I can do it from here, okay? The next one is that message box. So your inbox again, you can send a message to that crew member directly from the incident, and it's going to create that hyperlink form for that call, okay? The next one is the audit history, which we were talking about a little bit before. You were wondering, you know, why is it important for me to be logged in versus somebody else? If I click on this, it tells me who the user was that looked at it, who changed something in there. So if you guys are logged in as captains and you hand it to the rookie and they're doing stuff in there, they're under your permission group, right? So if you guys have extra access that they wouldn't have, they're able to go into things that they probably shouldn't be in. At this point, it's really not a huge difference, but if anything is done to that call, who's responsible for that call? Ultimately, the captains are responsible for that call, right? If the rookie's doing it, and this ends up being a summons to court, First thing a lawyer's going to look at is the audit history. Who's touched it, who's made changes, things like that. If you guys are logged in and the rookie's doing the documentation, who's getting called to court? Well, really all of you are, but who's going to spend more time on the bench? You are, because your name was under the audit history, right? I know right now you guys probably do one login for the entire shift, and multiple people are probably doing the documentation. I'm not saying you have to change that. I'm just telling you that anything that is done in the audit history is based off of who's logged into that, okay? So kind of keep that in mind. I trust my crew members, but I don't trust them, okay? Especially when you start seeing a huge difference in permission groups. You know, if Sherry was to be logged in, literally that rookie would have full access to the entire system and could click on some things that's really going to screw it up for everybody else, right? Right now, you guys don't have a huge difference in permissions, but if that changes down the road, be mindful of that, okay? That really, if somebody wanted to jack with the system, they could, under your name if you're logged in, so.
Under shift, is there going to be an option for an E and F shift?
So you should see a drop down for the 12-hour fire. That's your ENF shift. We can't, we were having some issues with it trying to designate the ENF shift, so I did those for you. So then you do that, and then over in your search you can do MR205, MR218, E2209 specific, and then it would just narrow it down to those. So.
Is there on all these searches? Is there any tie to personnel? Is that
So the telestaff feed is coming in, which is how we get it in Firehouse today. So, I mean, that information is in each call. So if you did want to narrow it down,
that'll eventually? Because I'm just
we
thinking,
could.
Like James works on 221 last night, gets a call early this morning. It gets to 208 for overtime.
Right.
When he goes in to finish it, he just wants to see the calls that he was on.
So the way it's set up in the permission group, you can only see the calls that your name is associated with. So if you are roving to 2 or 3 in the same shift, you should see all of those.
Yeah. You'll
when you
see
pull
all
it
of
up.
them. If you're on 211,
your name's associated.
you go to 208, you're going to see 211 and 208. You're going to see all the calls that you're tied to.
Because it's based on your name.
Regardless, you wouldn't have
permissions.
to search for it because it'll be in the list. The only thing you should probably have to search for is either one, you want to just narrow down the list. I only want to see engine 201, right? I only want to see those. Otherwise, they should be there as captains, if you get access to view every call, even the ones you aren't attached to. That's probably more of when you're going to use that search. But if you're searching for things all the time, create a list view. So you just have to switch to list view. Here's the information you're looking for, right? You don't have to search for it every time. I just want one just to see 211. That's all I want to see. You can create a list view for that, okay? The next one next to that, so this is one that we have as optional right now. We have it turned on so you guys can play with it, okay? Right now, you guys are not required to do additional narratives. So if you have extra units on a call, you have multiple units on a call, some agencies wanted the ability to be able to say, I need a narrative from each one of those units. They need to do their own narrative, right? We have that option in here. You guys are not required to do it. I don't think it's going to change, but we have this option here. So if I pick like this one here that has multiple units on it, if I click this button, now I have the engine and I have the medical rescue unit on here that they can click on that fire truck. Medical unit can open this up. Basically, it's going to ask them their primary action taken and their narrative. They fill that out. All right, medics always do superhero stuff. Once they do that, as a captain, if I'm going to review that call, I could now, before I even go into that call, I can see that all my other additional unit narratives are done, okay? Because I was on the engine. I was on engine 217, so I know that I'm going to do my narrative. But I know the medic unit did their narrative. I don't need to bug them and tell them to get their narrative done. It's already done, okay? So that's just an option within here that if you guys go to those additional narratives, here's how they can do it, okay? You guys aren't required to do that right now. And it's probably going to get shut off, but we want you guys to play with it a little bit, okay? And then the next one is just the arrow over. That's just to go in the call. So again, just a quick review. To get to your calls, log in, incident, view existing fire. If you just did the call or you just got called out, it's probably going to be at the top of the list. If you click that arrow, it's going to open up the run form. Here's what the run form looks like, okay? Very simple. It starts off as the mini infers, so the basic infers form. This is dynamic that as soon as I start putting information in, other things are going to open up, and there's more validation that's probably going to be required, okay? Because infers sets that validation, but also the agency level can create their own validation, okay? So we have the national standard, which is the infers, right, for you guys on fire. EMS is NMSIS. They say you need to have this information. This is what we require. Your agency says, here's what we want to collect, so they're going to add to what the infers is. So as long as you can get this number right here to 100, you guys are good. You're done doing your documentation. You don't have to meet anything else, okay? There won't be any red left. Start at the top and start working your way through this documentation. Don't go chasing the red, okay? We love chasing the red. Red is bad. We want it to go away, so we're just going to bounce around the run form and make sure all the red goes away. This system right here changes based off of answers that you put in certain fields, okay? So if I go around and start chasing the red on this, I think I'm done. I go and I answer one more question. I put an incident type in here. 12 more validations pop up because it's all based off of that incident type, okay? So just from the get-go, start at the top, work your way through. Once you get used to this system, you'll be bouncing around before you know it, okay? Because you'll be able to answer and you'll know where things are. But from the get-go, start at the top and start working your way through. What you're seeing over here on the right-hand side, these are what we call preset buttons. What do you call them?
Quick buttons.
Quick buttons is what she calls them. If you guys find yourself in a situation where you're doing documentation and it's the same documentation every time that you're doing it, let Sherry know. She can create a button that what happens is, say you guys went on a medical call, right? You went on a medical call, you showed up on scene, they just wanted to see the firefighters, now they feel safe, they don't need to be transported. You cancel the transport unit, okay? You guys can come in here and say it was a basic medical call. You guys can click this. By clicking 2 buttons, you're going to fill out 3 fields, okay? I'm going to say apply changes. The only field I have left to do is my property use. Oh, that's a call that just dropped.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're looking at a call that is literally right now, that CAD is updating as the call progresses. So your on-scene time, your clear time are going to be blank because that call is still live and active right now. So
here's one that happened, so all the time should be in there. So if I hit basic EMS, I apply, basic, I go to location, I put in my 419, my 429, whatever it is.
And we still have a times issue anyway.
Here's the question that Sherry's going to talk about here in a minute, is if you change times. What I want to show you first is, for some reason, we called, or we pushed the button or whatever, we went on that call, but dispatch forgot to enter in that time, okay? That time is blank right now because dispatch didn't put it in there, in that file. You guys can come in there and put a time in there that you think is fairly close to what you think it is. You can call dispatch and say, hey, we're missing our arrival time. Could you put us in at, 7:42? Can you put us that we arrived? They'll enter it in. You guys can go up, if you wanted to, and hit the CAD after they put it in there and reload current. It's going to fix the time that dispatch has, okay? So once they have that time in that file, you can re-download that file. It'll fix your times for you. Sherry's going to talk about this question.
So, today in Firehouse, the times are locked down that I'm the only one that can enter missing times. And that was a senior staff decision 8 years ago. With Elite, I cannot lock down the times. If I lock down the times, then I can't change them. So it's all or nothing. So the times have to stay unlocked, open. You guys can make changes. The only way for me to track those changes is by adding this question: did you modify or add a missing time? Yes or no? If you click yes, then I'm asking which of those above times did you change. I will run a report. Just go take a quick look at that time, because these times are important in regards to response times for the city, for the fire department. So we want to make sure the times are correct. One of the things that senior staff had directed me that if either, and this screen doesn't have your en route, but if your on-scene time is missing, then I basically back in your cleared or in-service time, so that way that call is taken out of the calculation for our response time. We don't want to count it because the button didn't take, you didn't push, whatever the case is. We don't want to calculate that in our response time because that is a guesstimated time that we've entered. So when I back in that later time, then we don't calculate that in our overall response time, run time. So for me to be able to track when you guys, so that you can get to your validation of 100, I had to leave those fields open so that you guys can now go in and complete that so it doesn't hold you up in completing your incidents. I'll just run a report after the fact and just go take a quick look. If I need to change it, I will. It's not a big deal. I do it today in Firehouse anyway. So, but that question I needed to add just because I can't lock down the times for this system.
So there's been talk about who's responsible for filling out the medical call, the basic infers, basically. Who's responsible for that? Is it the transports? Is it you guys? Things like that. That's still being worked on right now, but I think there's pretty much a consensus right now that if you cancel a med unit or a transport unit, that you guys will be filling these out, right? So that's why I use that scenario, that if you show up on scene, they just wanted to see your bright and shiny faces, and now they feel better, they don't want to go anywhere, and you cancel that transport unit, you guys will come in here and fill it out, and really all you guys are going to do is hit that basic EMS incident, apply changes, do your location, whatever it may be, intersection or family housing or whatever it is. Click no. You guys are done. This is already at 100%. Your documentation's done.
And that was like 4 clicks. Yes.
Is Zoe not going to
So
interact any longer?
the one thing about this system, and again, like I said in the beginning, we lose some capability, but we gain more. Because ImageTrend has their own EMS system, we don't have an interface between Zoe and Elite like we do between Zoe and Firehouse. We basically built that interface within the city between Firehouse and Zoe. We cannot do that here. So the automated processes I have in place today to close out Firehouse for you when it's a patient, that's going away. So you guys will have to come into Elite and you will have to close out your EMS calls as well. That's why my shortcut quick buttons, I can create as many as we want. I would really like to keep it to just one screen so we don't have to be scrolling down to find stuff. But these quick buttons are going to help you just to get in there, take care of it, and close it out so you don't have to fuss with it. We just cannot do an automated close for you because Zoe and Elite can't talk. Yes, Dan?
I know, Jeff, you were around long enough that you remember getting up in the morning and entering all your calls in that green, like you were entering them into the matrix. And so that's kind of what we're going back to. And it may seem like a step backwards, but it's really not. It's because CAD generated a call, we're going to have to enter that or final type that call, that EMS call. But it's super easy to do. I'm at the point now where I'm doing it on an iPad in 30 seconds or less, like they showed you. It's 4 clicks of a button. So while one person is in the back finalizing the call on Zoe, the other person can log in super quick, 30 seconds, the call disappears, and it's pretty quick, and it's pretty capable, and it's just what we're going to do for now.
There's a bigger picture, I'm sure. How long?
We don't talk about the future.
I'm not talking about future, I'm talking about bigger picture.
We don't talk about the future. We
So 1 year bigger picture.
No, you
Zip
zip it. We had to sign a 2-year contract with Zoe Star West, July 1st of this year. No changes, 2-year contract. Not to say strong possibility we may be looking that direction. I can't say for sure because no decisions have been made. But we've got a 2-year contract with Zoe. Nothing's going to happen. But transport billing has gone to Image Trend's billing component. We are using the fire, the inspections, and the investigations component. The EMS component is in this right now. We paid, well, we didn't have to pay extra for it. It's in the package. So big picture, we would be saving money because we pay a large amount per year for that contract with Star West. It's already in this system, but those decisions haven't been made yet. But a 2-year contract renewal is what we had to sign. So we're kind of hoping. We're kind of hoping, but we don't. We've got to get everybody else to buy off on that decision
It
too.
depends on who you talk to.
Yeah.
Go talk to Chief one, see what he says.
Yeah. Chief Yox over there will be like right now, But again,
Chief
Star
will give
West,
you a different
yeah.
synopsis of what.
Gilbert is in the build process like we are, but they are implementing EMS, fire, inspections, and investigations. Queen Creek just started with Image Trend. Superstition Fire already uses Image Trend for fire and EMS.
Potentially Phoenix.
Well, yeah, potentially Phoenix, Chandler, and Tempe already use Image Trend.
Yep.
So
Really, everybody in this
strong
area
possibility,
is
but-
using Image Trend already.
yeah,
I'm sorry, Chandler does?
Chandler does.
I thought
Yep.
Phoenix just went to an EPCR like a year ago, finally.
Well, they went to Zoe, and they're not very happy with it right now. So, not sure what Phoenix is going to do in the near future.
I
But
said potentially Phoenix, but
yeah, but they did. They seriously did just start the Zoe. Like maybe it's been within the last year, but yeah, they're not very happy. Yeah, yeah,
There's going to be groaning.
yes, yes.
well, there's two things we don't like. We don't like change, and we don't
Yeah.
like the way it is.
Yeah.
Right. So that's just how it is. That's how we are in EMS and fire.
Yeah, and there's also, and I mean, we can touch on it just a little bit, but there's pros in regards to the fire departments, partner agencies being on the same system because you can transfer that patient care. Like our engine 210 goes in with Medic 252. Well, 210 starts the patient. If we were both on Elite EMS, we could transfer that data to Gilbert. We'll finish ours because we need it for our record, but Gilbert would actually have
Your
everything you've
information
done
that you document
without
in here
verbally communicating
and
it to
in the EPCR would get transferred to theirs.
Yeah.
It would dump into theirs, so it would show that you guys did all this stuff, and here's all the patient demographics that you guys got before they got there. All that information, if you were on the same system, can
Yeah.
transfer over into their documentation. You guys have yours, transferred care to whoever. They're starting their documentation from where you left off. So
Yeah.
there's benefits to that. So.
Yeah, so there's definitely pluses, but we're not doing anything yet.
All right, so to close out this call, if I'm done with it, I just hit close. You guys have an option here of finish or close without finishing. Finish means that you're done with your documentation. This number is 100, okay? You're done with your documentation, hit finished. What it's going to do is actually move the status to complete. It's done. It marks it as done, okay? If you're not done because you got called out on a different call, you got interrupted in your documentation, just close it without finishing. It stays open. You can come back and document it later, okay? So now you can see the status switch to completed. Yep, I'm going to leave. If it is a different type of call, you're going to see that once I put in here If it's a building fire, you see that things over here on the left-hand side have changed. Now your fire section opens up, your structure fire opens up. The aid given and received, we can talk about that real quick. Sherry and them have been working very hard to kind of simplify this. I know it was done for them.
This is another thing we've kind of lost. We are able today to auto-calculate the aid given and received based on certain pieces of criteria with Firehouse today. Unfortunately, that we are losing that component. So this, which you guys have really never had to do unless you've been here for a really long time, maybe in the very beginning, I think Dan even said you guys had to. You guys now have to determine the aid given and received. This was a little clunkier in the beginning. We've had some good feedback that we've gone out and kind of tried to clean this up the best we can to make it make sense. Realistically, so the negative sign is it's a pertinent negative, so it's your none. So if you respond in Mesa, you're the only unit or it's only Mesa units, then our aid is none because we're in our city, where it's our fire department. We're not. AMR doesn't count because that's a private entity. They're not considered in our aid given and received. PMT, that when we go into Chandler area, they're not considered part of it. But if you guys respond, so inside the city, nobody but Mesa, it's always going to be none, which is our negative sign. We can't put that as one of our buttons. Then you have auto aid given. So when you're outside of Mesa, and so we're going into Tempe, but there is a Tempe fire unit on scene, or even a Tempe medic, because Tempe has their own transports now. That's Tempe Fire Department. We are giving aid to Tempe. If Tempe comes into Mesa, and we have a Mesa unit on scene, and that Tempe unit is coming in, then we're receiving aid from Tempe. So, yes, sir.
Will this come up on EMS calls where we go into a neighboring city? We have a lot of units that run EMS calls, so is that considered aid given?
If you're responding, so our transports really aren't supposed to go outside of Mesa, right? I know they do on those rare situations, but if you respond into Tempe on a medical call and it's a Tempe medic transport unit, then we are giving aid to that Tempe Fire Department unit,
Will
right?
that pop up? Will that take the CAD information in that says you are assigned?
You're going to have to know. You're going to have to know what unit you responded with to be able to say, did we give aid or receive aid?
I can see that not
Yes.
filled out.
Yes. Well, it is required, so it will have to be filled out. But this
Filled
again,
out correctly.
well, yeah. Well, but again,
Well, they're going to have to
Right.
finish the
So
call.
we
Right.
go into Gilbert, 252 comes in. So it will, that's what my question, it will red flag and say, hey, you
Yeah.
need this information.
you need to complete
And
it.
CAD will understand that that Medic 252 and Ladder 209 have worked on the same thing together from two different entities, and this information is required.
Yes. So this information is required on every call, whether we go outside the city or not. So you're the only unit responding. Ladder 209 responds with Medic 2209, both Mesa units inside Mesa. You still have to answer this question. Everything.
Every call.
Everything.
Every call.
Sorry.
If you
No,
use
no,
I
that's
thought it was just under the fire because that's what we're talking about.
if
No.
you use the quick buttons, we default this for you because we know that in this scenario of this button that you're going to click on, we know what the mutual aid is going to be or auto aid is going to be, so we default it for you. So if you see a lot of those calls, let her know. She can create the quick buttons and she'll default this for you. But if you can't use a quick button, you're going to have to know. So that's kind of why they spelled it out up top. Here's what we're looking for. And if you do have any questions about it, like I really don't know how to answer this one, we have a status for unable to close, review requested. Sherry's going to have a report that she's going to get on a daily basis. That does not mean every call goes to Sherry. But if you absolutely cannot,
I was just going to say, if, and I don't know if we touched on this or you were going to, but if you click on where it says 86 validation,
Yep.
if you click on that, that actually pops up a big menu board, and it'll show you what you're missing. And so
We're missing a lot on this one.
you can just click directly onto it, and it'll take you. Right
so if
there.
I want to look for this, let me find one. So incident type, fire incident type, right? If I click on that arrow, it's going to take me to the panel where that field is at. So it's a quick reference. I tell you, don't chase the red from the start, but when you get down to it, if you click down here at the end and you're like, where is this field? Click on that, click the arrow, it's going to take you to where it's at. If it tells you you cannot populate this because the field is not on the run form, that's a problem, okay? That means there's a visibility rule in place that we have to fix, okay? And they know how to do that. They know how to fix it. It's basically like, I was going to show you this here in a minute, but if I did my incident type of 111 and I started documenting in here any kind of information, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, the originating fire was actually a grass fire, right? That ended up going to the structure, okay? So there's an exposure, a property exposure, and it's actually two different reports. I go back in here and I change this to a 141, which is my wildland. My fire hides, okay? It will. It's not doing it right now. It's not functioning like it should right now. What should happen is the fire should go away, the fire section. Your wildland section should pop up in its place, okay? According to INFRS, you cannot have information in the fire section and the wildland section at the same time. One is an exposure of the other, okay? And I'm not talking like smoke inhalation or anything like that. I'm talking about property exposure. It's going to give you, and you're only going to be able to get this to 99. There's going to be 1 point validation, and that comes from INFRS. A quick way to fix that, because normally what I would have to do is I would have to go back to my incident type. I would have to type in the 111. The right section would show up. I would have to go into that section. I would have to clear out everything that I documented. Then I would have to go back to my incident type again, hit 141, go back, and now I can complete my documentation, right? But you have to know that that's what that validation is all about. We have a quick and easy way of doing that is down in the menu. You can clear modules. What's going to happen is it's going to have the fire module, but underneath that it's going to have the wildland module. I can click here and say, I need to clear out the fire module even though it's not open. It'll still clear it out and it'll fix your validation, okay? So you don't have to keep bouncing around to try and fix it. But we're going to have it set up to where if you type anything into 100, you're not going to see wildland. Unless you click the 141, which is wildland, right? Grass fire, forest fire, whatever. We're going to make sure that the right section pops up so you guys, they can't make that mistake. That's what we're going to be working on, okay? Make sense? It's a lot of information, but trust me, you'll get it when you hit that scenario. You'll be like, wait a minute. I remember Rich saying something about this.
So does the clear module delete the previous information? All that information.
It clears out that section of any information that you filled out.
So we lost it.
Makes sense?
It's a lot
The
of
one that
information,
you
but
don't want
trust me, you'll
populated.
Get that scenario, and you'll be like,
Yep.
I remember
Yep.
Rich saying something about this.
You don't have to go and unclick fields, delete your
It
numbers,
clears
any of
out
that stuff. It'll
section
clear
of
that
any
all out
information.
of that section. Okay?
The one that you don't want.
The incorrect information is what it's going to wipe out. So,
Yeah.
yeah, you don't have to go back through
You don't
each
have to go
field.
and
You can just
unclick
do
fields,
one.
delete
Yeah.
your numbers, any of that stuff. It'll clear that all out of that section. Okay?
So another question.
Yep.
Back to that status, when you send something to review to you, are you going to have to look through that entire
Able to close
record to figure out what exactly it is that I'm missing, or is anything pop up like, hey, I need to review this? Hey, this is like a little pop-up box or something that says, hey, this is the part that I'm having an issue with, so you can go straight to it and fix it.
So that's kind of where the inbox email This, my status unable to close is just, it's going to kick me a report. I'm going to go out and pretty much, like we've talked about, I'm going to go to that validation. I'm going to see what error's there. Then I'm going to go, and anything that's flagged red. So my eyes are kind of going to go to those certain areas and check those first. We do have what we call visibility rules behind the scenes. So if this, then it hides that. If this is no, then
If
it
you've
hides
got time,
that. So we
you
have those
can
kinds of
send
rules that
through the message. Just go up to
will
your
take
message
a little bit more
and just send her a quick
digging,
message,
but
because what
that
it's going
could
to
be
do is
what the
actually send
problem
her a
is. So,
hyperlink in that
again,
message
you're
to this
clicking
run
everything you
form
know to
anyways.
click, and it
So you can
could
say,
very well be something
"Hey,
behind the
I'm not
scenes
finding
that
this
we
field,"
have to
right?
take a look at.
Quick message, she's got it.
Well,
It'll
yeah,
show
but
up in
this
her
is-
inbox.
If
She'll
you've
fix
got
it
time,
or
you can
communicate
send
back with
through
you
the
through that
message.
message and say,
Just
"Hey,
go
I
up to
fixed
your
it. This
message
is what it was."
and just send her a
Right?
quick message.
So if you've
because
got
what
the
it's gonna
time,
do
you
is
can
actually
do
send her
that.
a
But
hyperlink
she
in that
knows
message
To this
to
incident.
the
run
documentation.
form. So you can say, "Hey, I'm not finding this field," right? Quick message, she's got it. It'll show up in her inbox. She'll fix it or communicate back with you through that message and say, "Hey, I fixed it. This is what it was," right? So if you've got the time, you can do that. But she knows the documentation.
I know what I'm looking for.
Sometimes I'll screenshot stuff and email it. Or text message. Do that too.
Right.
All kinds of-
But that's,
Save her the time.
yes.
Go through the entire record.
You're the only person that has said that. Thank you. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you for worrying about my time too. But this is why you guys are critical to me now, is that we can try to find these bloopers now during testing and we can fix them before go live, so that we shouldn't have situations like that going forward, right? So that's why today, yes, we may very well find more things that are flagging and we can't figure out why. That's why you guys are so important to me right now, is to help me find those things. Because I'm not on a truck. I've done 3 ride-alongs, which I enjoyed very much. I'm not out there every day. I don't see these situations. You guys are out there. You know what you're doing. You know what information needs to be here. You're the ones that are going to find not necessarily my mistake, but Mesa City software. You guys are going to find the mistakes for me, the errors that are out there. So that's why you guys are so critical right now. So.
This will also help you from getting that invitation to complete your report. Nasty grams from Terry.
They're not nasty.
That will help that email process. Is if you have a question about it, you can't complete it, just send an invitation to complete your report. Yeah.
My nasty gram? You don't want to get those
Get a list or for us to
Somebody said Nastagram yesterday, and somebody was like, "No, really, it's a invitation to complete my report." Right?
any call that I'm responsible for to alleviate the, what do you call it?
Well, I forget who it was. It was be like,
Invitation to complete.
oh, my nasty gram? You don't want to get those from me? No, I'm just kidding. But no, so.
Somebody said Nastagram yesterday, and somebody was like, "No, really,
And I
it's
take
a
offense to
invitation to
Nastagram.
complete my report." Right?
They're not nasty. I say please and thank you. No, I'm just kidding. Well, and I forget who it was. It was be like, yeah, when we're at the station, well, did you get that nasty gram from Sherry? That was Dan. Dan said that to me yesterday. But again, my emails are just courtesy reminders. You've got something hanging out there, right? That's all it is. But captains have that one permission group higher to where you would potentially see more incidents than just yours. The firefighter engineer permission group should really just see what they're associated with, but captains, you potentially are going to see more than just yours. So if
No way to filter
If-
the ones that will ultimately.
And that's where we can use those list views.
I can
And your
change you
list,
specific
your
to where
private
you only
one.
see yours
Here's-
if you don't think
here's
there'll be a
only
reason
the
that you want to
ones
see
that I'm responsible
other.
for. So when I get up at
stations
5
for
a.m.
whatever reason.
to make sure that everything's done, I can look at
Yeah.
my list view. If there's anything in that box, that
Right.
list view,
So-
I know that those haven't been done yet. They need
Yeah.
to be completed. If there's nothing in that list view, I have nothing done. I can have my coffee and I can do my pass down and I can leave. Right? Make sure that everything's done. I can look at my list view. If there's anything in that box, that list view, I know that those haven't been done yet. They need to be completed. If there's nothing in that list view, I have nothing done. I can have my coffee and I can do my pass down and I can leave, right?
And I'm not trying to predict the future. I'm just
No,
saying
yeah.
that's what everyone's going to want to
Yeah.
see.
Right.
So I
And
did.
As opposed to setting up a private view for
Right.
every captain out there.
Right. So I changed James's view, which I'm hoping it fixed it now, to where, so under the captain's permissions group, I have it to where you can see my fire incident, so anything you were assigned to, and then other fire incidents would then be anything else in the system. I can take that flag off. If you guys think that you only want to see yours that you're assigned to, I can take that flag off. The reason that flag is there too, with you guys being super users, that you could then go out and look at that incident of the person contacting you with a question. You can go out. Otherwise, if it's just my fire incidents, you won't see anybody else's. You won't be able to help any questions that come in. So it's kind of, I can take that flag off. I can make it to where you only see yours. So if you're a rover and you're at different stations throughout the day, you can only see yours. I can definitely take that flag off. But if you guys being the super users and somebody calls you, you would want to be able to go out and look at that incident with them. And that's the only way you would be able to do it, is if I had that flag checked, that you can see other incidents.
Is
Yes.
there a way to make the private one our default and make there's an ability that we can open up every incident that's on the 12-hour thing that's going to a whole bunch of different stations?
Yeah.
But in that outside chance that somebody calls and says, "Hey, I'm having a problem with this," that we can open something up where we can view everything else. So,
Right.
so instead of the default seeing everything, the default being we see our personal list, and then we can.
I still think that's going to be based on that flag in the permissions group. The fire incident list, if they're my fire incidents only, that fire incident list view is only going to be the ones they're assigned to. So we can create you a private view that would be just your station, your shift, so you see those to where
There is a potential you could do it through a list view to say crew member is one of these and put that individual in there. So when they look at that list view, they're only going to see the calls that they're attached to and make that their default, but then also have the backup of that
to where they could still
ultimate
see
list
every.
where you can see everything. So
Yeah.
there is a potential that we could do something like that.
And I think that's probably what we may end up doing, is for you captains, just to have your
own
private view that would pull up anything incomplete, or we can have a private view where it pulls up everything you've been dispatched on. So we can do it two different ways. You can just see your incompletes, or if you want to go back and look at a call that happened 2 months ago, just because, we can have that list everything. So it's kind of, we can work on that once we get going as to what you really want to see. But I just figured for the super users, you guys are going to want to have access to all the incidents, so that way if you need to assist anybody, you can go out and look at it with them, you at your station, them at theirs, and you can both look at it together and walk through it. If I take that flag off, then you're not going to be able to help anybody that
then
may have questions.
a list view would not help you at that point.
Yeah,
right?
it's just going to narrow
If
it
we
just to
limit
you.
your permission group, then it takes that option off the table. We can't use an incident list that way. But if we create you an incident list that says crew member is equal to yourself, status is equal to incomplete, make that your default list. Basically, your list is going to say all the calls that you were attached to that are incomplete. So when you get up at 5 a.m. because you had a good night, right? Recliner time, you watch the permit RDL builder, right? You got some good sleep. You can actually have that as your default. So as soon as you log in, if there's anything in that list, you know it needs to get done before end of shift. If there's nothing in there, great. Go have your coffee, right? There's nothing that needs to be documented. But if somebody was to call and say, hey, I've got a question about this, you can switch your list view to the ultimate one and say, okay, what call are you looking at? Well, I'm looking at, call 129. All right, perfect. Go find that call in that ultimate list. Okay, what problem you having? I see this, I see that, right? So that would be probably the primary goal is what we want to do. Okay. So they can work on setting that up.
I completely apologize for asking this question. Incomplete versus open incident, would there really be any difference?
They're the same. It's the incomplete status versus the view is open incidents.
So,
Same thing.
So if it's incomplete and someone said, hey, I have an issue with this, I can technically go to open incidents, put in their unit number, and start narrowing it down.
Yep.
To where they're at.
Or
And-
just have them give you the run number, because
Yes.
you can see the run number and just open it up.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Open incidents is basically your incomplete
Incomplete.
list. Yep. And they can change that name as well.
Yeah, we can make them consistent because, like Firehouse, it's open, your open incidents in Firehouse, but we can make that verbiage incomplete, so that they match.
So one thing I do want to point out is you can now see, I found out one that somebody was looking at, is across the top I have that banner up there now. It says another user is viewing this record. That means two people are in the same record, okay? You guys cannot, as of currently, you guys cannot be in the same incident. Two people cannot be in the same incident without potentially losing data. If you're documenting in this incident, he's documenting in the same incident, who's going to save? Is it going to be yours or is it going to be his that it saves? I've tested this multiple times. Sometimes it saves both of you. Sometimes it saves nothing, right? We're working on that right now behind the scenes. We're thinking of a queue system. If you log in first, then you're going to be in Q1, you're going to be in Q2. You make your changes, you log out, he's still working in it. It's going to save your changes. As soon as he's done, it's going to combine the changes he made and puts it in there, and everything should be there, right? Ultimately, it's just data. It's just numbers and letters put together. Right? How hard can it be, right? But just so you know, there is a potential that if two of you are in the same one, it may not save your changes, okay? So if you do see this nice little feature, so if I click on that little hyperlink, I can tell who's in there. I'm going to call that, yeah, because I took his incident. He was in there first, so I'm actually the bad person, but I'm going to call him out. So call that person up, say, hey, we're in the same incident. You either need to get out or I need to do our changes. Let me know when you're done, or let me do this quick, then you can have it, right? For now, that's the way it needs to work, okay? Because I don't want to see you guys losing your data because you're like, well, I put my narrative in there. Why is it not in there?
Not that we have that problem in Firehouse today.
Right.
Narratives go missing all the time.
Right.
No, you're good. Ask.
Can you be logged into two things at the same time?
Multiple sessions at the same time because this is web-based.
I
yes.
can have 15 tabs open
Yes.
with the same thing.
No, but can I log into both Zoes? Let's say I go back today, I log in.
You can't, because your Zoe will kick you out, right? At least that's how it used to be.
Yeah, Zoe kicks you out.
Yeah, this does not.
First Dude does not kick you out.
This will not kick you out. You can literally open up
So I
multiples.
can open it up and give it to my guys in the back and just say, hey, let's play.
I'm on my desktop at the office right now.
Okay, that's my other
Yeah.
question. Is it also on the desktop?
Yes, yes. We are in the process of pushing the icon to the iPads. It's not there yet, but that is in the work.
On this one.
Oh, then maybe Teresa got it pushed. So I haven't looked at my iPad yet today. So they should be on your iPad as well. But you can literally open up, because it is web-based, you can literally open up multiple sessions and you will not get kicked out.
Literally,
So-
I have taught classes of 75 individuals for end user. So I did it for Atlanta, down at Atlanta Fire. 75 people were in the room. I gave them one login. Every individual in that room logged in with the same login. We're in multiple records, in the same record, all over the place. Everybody was able to do their documentation, all that stuff. It's a free play at that point. You can be logged into multiple devices. I could be on the tablet, I could be on the desktop, and I can pull it up on my phone if I wanted to and be in all three. It's not going to boot me out.
So real quick, James had a question.
So, I hope we're not going backward, but I just want to make sure I understand.
No, you're fine.
So one of these has to be done with every call now. There's no connection between the two. So,
Correct.
like, let's say, whoever's charting needs to do this, correct?
No. So whoever's charting your patient record is going to be, and so this is my prime example. You got two firefighters in the back. One's finishing up patient charting. The other one pulls out the other iPad, logs into Elite, and closes out these 3, 4, 5 fields, and you're done. You can continue to chart patient. They're done with this piece.
So this is kind of what I'm getting at. So, but you said that ultimately falls on the captain to make sure all that's done correctly.
In the big picture, everything falls back on the captain. Honestly, your Zoe patient, everything does.
Right.
So
What I'm saying is if that happens, you got one guy doing
Joey, another guy doing this, and they close it all out, can the captain go review what was done, or is it gone now?
No, you can still see it. You can still go back. So even in your private, like I'm really thinking we're going to get to the point of each captain kind of having a private view so that you can just go look at your crew. If you're a rover, that's going to be a little bit different because you're going to be, kind of everywhere. But we
It would
can
still work though, because he would still be attached.
he would still be attached.
Yep.
But they don't go away. So like even in Firehouse today, you complete it, it's not going to show up on that open incident, but we can always go back out and find it. It's and we're
Here
going
it's
away.
going to be in your list.
Yeah.
It doesn't go away.
Yeah, you will be able to go out and see. If you want to review it, you can go out and review it after they've completed it. So.
If you were real concerned about quality control, just when they get to the end, click close without say or what's the button? It's finish without closing.
Yeah, finish without closing.
And it'll keep
Close without finishing?
Yeah.
What is it?
Close without finishing.
Whatever,
Yeah.
I know.
But you know what I'm talking about. There's one that says finish and then
Yeah. Either you're done or you're not done, right? If you're not, just have them if they complete it, just hit not done, and then you're going to see it in your list view that it's not done. So you're going to look at it, yeah, looks good. You're going to close it
You
out.
can go
instead.
back and check it.
It'll still have that 100% validation. You won't have to do anything, but you can look at it and review it. So
Read the narrative, do what
Even if they do close it, at some point we're probably going to limit that list. That after this point, you guys don't need to see them. You don't need to have 3,000 calls in your list. We're probably going to downsize that a little bit. We're going to say once it hits complete or the next step after complete, you're not going to see it anymore, right? Unless for some reason it's a big working event. BC looks at it, says, hey, I need more information here. Then if it pops into this status, then it may show up in your list, right? Needs crew review or something like that. Needs more documentation, whatever we call the status. Right now you're going to see everything. By the time you go live, it's probably going to be a little less condensed, that you're only going to see stuff up to a certain status. Once it goes to infers, once it gets submitted every 2 weeks, you guys don't need to see that. It's been submitted to infers. You don't need to see it. You don't need to have thousands of calls in your list. So we're just going to take the ability to see it in that status. We're going to take it away so you guys won't see it.
But it will always be there. We can always go back and find it. Sad as it is with our cancer scare right now, like I'm asked to go back and run a report of, so-and-so, how many calls have they been on since their career, or how far I can go back in Firehouse. I will always be able to go back and find the historical ones. You guys just don't need to see them in your list. So, but they will always be there.
All good questions. Mm-hmm. All right. So just to kind of finish up a little bit on what does what. So you guys can see here I have some different options. Let me see if I can find a better one.
Is there a list of mutual aid versus automatic aid so we don't click the wrong one, or are the list options limited?
Yes, the list options are limited. Our mutual aid is Rural Metro Fire and Salt River Fire.
Okay.
Because they're private entities, they charge their homeowners for their services. If Rural Metro, our county islands, if Rural Metro needs Mesa Fire, they've got a radio to dispatch. Dispatch contacts the shift commander to get approval to send a unit. You're going to know when it's a mutual aid. It's really only going to be Rural Metro and when we respond north to the Salt River.
And are those the only two options if you click mutual aid? Rural Metro and Salt River, or the other ones?
There's a way of doing that.
We can, because we
Yeah.
can hide everything else.
Because we can hide
but-
values based off of an answer.
Yeah.
So yeah, once kind of you guys play with this a little bit, you guys will notice things like that. Like, hey, so I'll show you an example. I'll come back to this narrative thing here in a minute. So if you look that if I do a 321 in here, my only option for primary action taken is a 33. That's the only thing I can select. All my other primary actions, my 10, my 20, my 30, all of them are hidden, and your only option is a 33. Same thing with the 611. If it's a 611, which is a canceled in route, my only option is a 93, right? You can't have a 611 and put a 33 in here. That's not accurate documentation, right? So we can limit things like that. If I press this button, This field's only going to show these values, and I just pick one of the two. Okay.
So in a multi-unit fire response, the alarm time or the arrival times is always missing on several of the units. So are we going to be responsible for putting in the arrival date and time for each unit?
Can you click on your apparatus tool? So this is where the individual, well, yeah, this one just has ones, but this is where the individual apparatus will be listed. These are not required. If times are missing here, it will not flag as red for you. I will go back after the fact, because again, this is how we get the individual response times per vehicle, is those apparatus times, but they will not flag red for you to close your call. Like Firehouse today, it does. This will not. It's just that initial screen.
They all have arrival times.
Well, so like E2203, if this is a current call though, E2203 is still missing arrive, clear, in service, because this is 11:04 at 8 o'clock. This is a current call.
They're probably still on.
But like engine 207 is missing their arrival. Likelihood is they were probably canceled because there's already a back in service clear time. So this, I will enter the missing times here. You guys don't have to, because it will not flag as you need to do anything to this section. So this will be my responsibility.
But if it is and you put a time in there, that's where you answer her question. Yeah, I put a time in here.
Yeah.
And that'll flag her in her report, and she'll go and put whatever time she needs to in there.
Yeah, but at least this piece.
If I'm not final typing an incident and I'm on MR218, I go with engine 203, they're in command, they final type the call. Do I have any responsibility, or are they going to take care of everything?
So the system cannot designate a primary unit. So it's really going to be, if you know that you clearly were not command, that you were directed to do this, this, and this, you know that that other unit is primary. They should be responsible for it. But there is no way in this system to actually make that designation. So when you pull up your incidents, you're going to see that you're assigned to all these calls, but you're going to know by looking at it, okay, I was not command, I was not primary, so you're only going to take care of yours. It's making sure that whoever was command of that event, they know that they have to go out and complete it. But there is no way in this system right here to designate that to that responsibility. Doug is working on a report, kind of like what comes out at the start of your shift right now from Firehouse, that talks about your open incidents that are over 7 days open. We are working on a report that can go pull the first arriving unit, but sometimes that doesn't always guarantee that they were command of the incident, but we can't make that determination anyway. But we at least have a report that's going to be similar to what you get out of Firehouse today that would show you what potentially your open incidents are. So, but you should know, hey, I wasn't command, I don't need to worry about it. You're not responsible for it. Expect that whoever was in command of that event is going to close it. Otherwise, they'll get a nasty gram from me. So just expect those emails.
So your CAD notes are coming over as well?
Yes.
Into these calls?
We're still missing a little bit. We came across one again yesterday that, especially with our transport units, it was missing the transport times of leaving the scene and arriving at the hospital. So we are still missing a little bit of CAD data that we are working on Image Trend CAD text to fix that for us. But that CAD narrative should look like what Firehouse has today. This is a lot cleaner to get to, because when you go to do your narrative, that CAD narrative is right under you. So if you need details out of it to complete your narrative, it's right there for you. Instead of having to come out 3 different places and go back, it's easily accessible for you.
All right, so there's a few more things left, and then I think we can pretty much wrap it up. You can see the functionality within here. I'm just kind of going to show you the functionality. If you see this down arrow, the chevron here, this is a single select. I can only pick one answer. If it's the 3 lines, hamburger, whatever you want to call it, ladder, whatever you want to call it, you can pick on it. This is a multi-select, so I can pick multiple answers, okay? For you guys that are going to be using the tablets, we have this little tablet icon. What it's going to do is push your options over onto the left-hand side. You can scroll with your thumb, make your selections on the touch screen. So we kind of had that functionality put in there. And then, like Sherry was saying, these negatives, that's your not values, pertinent negatives. It's undetermined, whatever it is, okay? Let me So property losses, okay? Investigators have their own module within Elite. They're going to be doing their documentation in their own piece of Elite, okay? You guys will be filling out the property losses to the best of your abilities. It doesn't go anywhere. We're not going to hold your feet to the fire or anything like that. What is your best guess, okay? Sherry has created some documents for dumpsters, so your dumpster fires. There's Zillow that's out there. What they're going to do is actually create you guys hyperlinks to put in here. So under property loss, you're going to have the assessor link to the assessor's office. You're going to have a link to Zillow. You're going to have a link to get pieces of documentation.
Yeah, potentially Word docs and PDFs.
Yep.
Or even like Kelly Blue Book, if it's a vehicle fire. Like we can put those hyperlinks here to where you can go out, get your dollar amount, come back.
And what it's going to do is actually just open up a new tab for that assessor's website, right, for you to go and check values just to kind of get a guesstimate of what it is. If I move down here, my house is always worth $5 million, okay? You guys will get a cut of the profits when the insurance company comes. Really, right. Now it's $5 million in one because it's considered art. So best of your abilities, okay? The investigators are going to have their own piece. They have their guide that they go by. They're putting the actual cost that they have in their own documentation. That's going to be separate, okay? But you guys will have to answer this because this information right here goes to city council.
Yes, so
They're looking for values at the end of the year. How much property loss did we have in a value? So best guess here, don't put zeros. Okay.
yeah, and again, we're not going to come back to you and be like, oh my God, you said that house was $1 million and it was $250,000. That's we do report to City Council at the end of every month and at the end of the year of how much loss in the city was reported. So those numbers are important internally. Insurance companies are not going to come back and said Mesa Fire said it's worth this much. Insurance company is going to determine what they're going to pay to replace those items. But this needs to be to your best ability. Don't put one, don't put $1 million, just to your best ability. And again, it's just because we do report that to council as to what's happened in the city for the year. So it is important information to have. I explained that on Monday or Tuesday morning session, and it was like, well, that was a good explanation because they didn't really understand what these dollar amounts really, like why are we even putting them in there? But again, it's just to show what happened in our city for the month or the year. So they are important pieces of information. If you guys have any ideas of additional hyperlinks, so we have the loss estimation guide that Mike Brewer had created years back when he was doing investigations. We're going to put that link out here in the appropriate spot. We can put Zillow, the Maricopa County Assessor, Kelly Blue Book. The suggestion was too on like a weather app. If there's any reason that you guys would need access to the weather, like if there was lightning or anything happening at the time, if you need access to that, so there's different types of hyperlinks. We can either make it a document or we can make it an actual link to take you out to a website. But if you guys have any suggestions or thoughts as to what might be good or what would help you, let us know because we're more than happy to put those things in here so you guys don't have to like, oh my God, I got to stop this, go out here, do this, this, and this. You just click that link, it takes you there, you come back and put in that amount. Yes, sir?
While we were talking, I entered a 3-in-1 fire in a Jack-in-the-Box that happened last night, and I had no idea what a Jack-in-the-Box costs, so I just Googled how much does it cost to build a fast food restaurant, an average cost, and $1.1 million. And so,
phew, there you go.
So if that's what the best you can do, I mean, that sounded reasonable to
Yeah.
me. So, yeah.
So for that matter, even a Google link, like just so you don't have to open up another browser, just hit that link, it'll take you out, type in what you're looking for. So anything like that you guys think will be helpful to you, let us know because we can manipulate this system to a point, but those things I think are going to be beneficial when you're trying to complete stuff in the field.
Shady
Yes?
URLs do not count as
No,
okay?
not those
Just saying.
oddball ones. Did you have a question?
Yes, because I'm invested interest at 2-in-1 gas, where there may have been some sort of chemicals or anything like that. Is there going to be anything different that needs to be added into that?
So it's going to be based on your final type. So if you do that 400 series, which are the hazardous If you do your 400 series final type, then you're going to have additional fields that open up in regards to hazmat. So it's in the sense the same that you would enter today in Firehouse. You would enter that hazardous section in Firehouse. It's the same. We're not really looking for any more information. Image Trend is really good about keeping up to date on all of the INFRS rules, the federal rules for fire reporting. They maintain that, they manage that. We don't have to, which I very much appreciate, because the INFRS is this big. It's horrific. They manage all of that for us. If there's a federal change, they will update the system. The system will update our form. You guys will then see, oh, there's a change. INFRS is now wanting new data. Now we have a new field we have to enter. But it really is the same general idea as what you do in Firehouse today. The same type of fields.
Does that kind of answer your question? So if I did an actual hazmat call, this section pops up. That's where we talk about that visibility. As soon as I put this in, other things may open up. Your hazmat open up, what this is a grid. If I hit add, here's where I can add all those chemicals, right? If there's a spill of some sort, I can put that in here. There's no validation tied to these right now. So best of your ability, if you don't know what it is, you don't know certain things in here, fill out what you do know. And they can complete the other stuff later. If investigation goes out there to look at it, they have their own piece of documentation that they'll take care of their stuff, okay?
Add photos?
Yes, so that was actually where I was going next. Thanks for the segue. So down here in the menu, you have a couple of options, okay? Real quick with the exposures, so I'm not talking physical exposures, I'm talking property exposures, okay? So the car in the driveway starts on fire, starts the house on fire. The originating fire is the car fire. I have to fill out that first information for the car fire. Then the house is on fire, so I'm going to have to fill out a separate record for an exposure, okay? What I suggest is you complete this first piece of documentation, get it as close to 100 as you can, if not 100. Then come down here to the menu and hit Add Exposure, okay? What that's going to do is it's going to take your original one, it's going to close it, put it back in your list. It's going to open up a new piece of documentation for you, except the exposure number is now going to be 1. It's going to move your CAD information, some other fields that you fill out. It's going to move that all onto that new document, and you fill out the fields that you need to for the house fire, okay? Car, I know you guys probably, from the sounds of it yesterday, it's really not been enforced that you're documenting your exposures, your property exposures. It may change just because you can do it in here. It's good documentation to say, here was the originating fire and this was caused from this originating fire, okay? So it's just that documentation piece. Add exposure will close your originating one. That's why I say do it, complete that one first, because it's going to close it for you. And you're going to go to the next piece and you're going to finish that one, okay?
So my little soapbox on exposures, property exposures, unfortunately we do not document them as well as we should. So again, if the house catches on fire and then there's damage to the house next to it, whether it was heat damage, water damage, well, technically that is an exposure, because now that homeowner's insurance is going to want a report to know what happened to their home. So we do struggle a little bit with those exposures reporting. We need to try to get better at it, but I'm not your, BC shift commander to tell you what you got to do. I'm just saying we don't document them as well as we should. But this does give you the capability. We've also talked about, which I think we're probably going to do, is when you put that final type of a 111, which is a structure fire, have a question pop up, was there an exposure? Was there a property exposure? This is not your smoke exposure, your COVID exposure. This is not that. Infectious, that's all through Zoe. That's different. This is the physical property, the vehicles. The car on the street catches fire, it jumps to the house. Well, yeah, technically we have 2. When we had the captain's training about 4 years ago, if it's an apartment complex, then no, we are not asking you to do an exposure for each unit that is damaged in the fire. You do one for the apartment fire. You notate in your narrative that multiple units were affected. You could list the units themselves, but at least you comment multiple units. We don't expect an exposure on an apartment fire. But if it's a residential fire, if it's a business fire, and that jumps and spreads, then yes, we really should be documenting that those additionals are exposures. So we just need to try to be a little bit better with that.
Did you say that you were going to add something?
I can add a question, yes, that if you put in that final type of a 111 for a structure, like there may be a few final types to choose, that I will add that question. But yes, I can have that question pop up right underneath and be like, was there a property or was there like a fire property? I'm trying to figure out what verbiage would make sense. But yes, was there an exposure? If you answer yes, then there would be another prompt to be, please complete the exposure for the property. So that's, just to be helpful, and again, I don't want to say it, but a lot of people may just click no, but I'm prompting you. So
you get those multiple exposures. We want, as an agency, I would want that data because now I need to be able to figure out how much manpower do I need. If I'm shorthanded and I'm showing that we're having multiple exposures all the time, that gives me the data to go to the city council and say, hey, I need more bodies on the street, and here's the data to prove it, right? So the more complete data that you guys put in here, the more accurate data you guys put in here, the better the data is going to be, and you guys are going to be in a better place down the road with that data. So,
and
Sherry,
yes,
I think kind of what I'm wondering is where does our, at the captain level and the fire investigator level begin?
So
I just feel like it's getting a little bit deep in the weeds because the captains have a lot going on a fire.
right.
Now with all of our decon and all this other stuff, we're starting to add exposures. I'm just wondering where the fire investigator report becomes
the fire investigator does not technically have anything to do with the exposures, right? They're there for that original property that caught fire, what caused that fire. Those exposures were just a casualty of the original. So the investigators aren't even concerned about the exposures. They wouldn't have to. It may be in their overall report, but they're there to determine what caused this fire. So whoever's, command, whether it's first arriving, battalion chief, whomever, they are ultimately responsible for every required field in this fire module. The investigators have their own module. They really wouldn't even need to come in here at all. They are not going to be required to come in here at all. So ultimately, and how it was explained to me at one point is if you don't have an investigator come out, then really that captain is the initial investigator. Because you're making that determination that, we don't need an actual investigator because I can determine the origin was here, it appears to be this. Then that's how the investigators had explained it to me, is that you guys are ultimately making that initial determination. I can't figure out what caused this fire. I need an investigator out here. Otherwise, you're determining where it started, what could have possibly started it. You don't need an investigator out. So this is really fireside only. What happened right now at the event, at the incident, what has happened with this fire. The investigators are an hour, 2, 3 hours after. They're ultimately not responsible for the exposures, even though they may report it. They're not ultimately responsible for those because they were just collateral damage to the initial. So this really is on the captains and command officers.
But really, we're going to make this better than Firehouse because we're going to have you guys that are looking at it and playing with it over the next few months before you guys go live, that you will find situations like that. And how often do you have exposures? And is there a way we can create that easy buttons, the preset buttons, to say, okay, if it is an exposure, what else do I need to document, and can I default it, right? So it's things like that that will help speed up that documentation as well. Because right now, I do know a little bit about Firehouse, and some of it is a little bit clunky, right? And we're going to try and fix that here with you guys in the room to help get to that point before you guys go live.
Rick, there's a huge difference between taking a picture of maybe the melted siding on the side of a house, taking a picture of that and just acknowledging that it was there and adding it as an addendum or adding it to this, and that other building catching on fire and burning to the ground, right? So there's a huge difference in that kind of exposure exposure reporting. So that may be something
Yeah, maybe further discussion
further
on something
discussion
like
on
that.
how
Yeah.
that's going to go. Because,
At what point do we require
Right.
an exposure report?
right.
So that could be something up to have a discussion about.
Yeah.
Versus the fire officer, the first engine officer, right? So that's pretty kind of. I see where you're.
It almost seems like a labor issue.
Yeah, no, you're
Operation.
absolutely right. Operational issue. There's a difference.
Yeah, for sure.
So as far as your question with attachments, same thing, menu. If I go to attachments, add new, with your iPads, you can actually take pictures. So as you roll up on a scene, you can take a picture and you can add it as an attachment. Houston Fire right now is doing audio recordings and actually attaching audio recordings within their attachments. Okay, I have not seen a file type yet that it has rejected. Just remember, the bigger the file, the longer you're going to see that spinning wheel of death loading. Okay, so just keep that in mind. But can you roll up on scene and take a quick video of what you're rolling up to and add it here? You certainly can. Okay, you can take pictures of here when we rolled up, smoke was rolling out. There was no flames, right? Or whatever. There was no smoke showing when we rolled up. You can do those kind of things. MVAs. You can take pictures of the vehicles and how they're sitting. I can add those in here. Okay, so you can do all sorts of attachments. On the EMS side, you can take pictures of the medlets and add them as an attachment, right? So you can do all that kind of stuff within attachments. Does that kind of help with your question? Yes.
The mechanics of this is it for like the iPads, you can either take a picture and it goes to your photos, and you have to attach the photo from the photo library, or does this import directly?
It will I believe it imports it directly. Because what that'll do is if you say take photo, it's going to actually jump in that iPad, because you've tried it, right?
Exactly.
It jumps right into your camera and opens up the camera right away for you to take a picture.
Yeah.
Yep. And then it just throws it in here. Okay.
Can you do a walkthrough if you need a video?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so I did a fire report not too long ago where I actually Google Earthed it, did the street view, so I got pre-fire pictures of the house. I had the Zillow file, the valuation, all of that information attached to the file, to the report, so you had all of the pre-information. And I didn't have any post-fire pictures, but by all means, that would be easy enough for the first engine company officer to do, or anybody really.
Or if you just open it up and take a picture with it and then go into your documentation a little bit later, it's going to be saved as a file. You just hit browse. You're going to be able to look on there, find that file, and download it that way as well.
Take your phone out and snap pictures.
Yep.
Email it to yourself.
That was my question. It doesn't necessarily need to be on the iPad, correct?
Nope.
No, it's on your phone.
Yeah.
The little the cameras
Yep.
on their helmets.
Yep.
You can come back and upload it.
Yeah, you can upload it and add it later at any point. Even if they do go to the point of locking, you're still able to go in here and add your attachments. So you can add it after the fact if you want.
The one thing I would be super careful about with that, if you record video with your personal phone and attach it, that phone now becomes discoverable. If this became an arson fire, or if there were a criminal, your phone would then be subject to subpoena, your personal phone. So use the city's med phone, use the city's, I would not use your own personal phones. And I wouldn't use your own personal, the helmet camera, because that camera is now discoverable. And anything you have on it would be discoverable. So just be real careful.
Nobody looks at things on their phones at all whatsoever, but just saying it's discoverable.
But your phone can get, like, can take, I mean, that's just the reality.
Yeah, they'll see everything on it.
Yeah, so just be
Yep.
super careful about your own personal devices.
Everything.
When I was an investigator, I would take my personal phone out of my pocket.
And I have less than 12 minutes. Good thing this came up. You guys they must be pushing out a hot fix today. So when we do push out an update, you guys may see this banner come across. It's the countdown timer. How fast can you document your documentation? Okay. Literally, it'll probably only be down for a few minutes because we usually kick you out, do the update real quick, and then you can log back in. Okay, so you guys may see this. I now have 11 minutes left. Okay, and then it's going to kick me out. Okay, on the field side, you guys won't have to worry about that. Okay, field side, when you guys eventually, if we don't talk about the future, if you guys go that route and you're using field, you guys won't have to worry about it on the field side. Okay.
Does it have an autosave?
Yes.
Yes.
It does autosave.
Yep. So you can see that button up here.
You
This
can save
is
it
for people that
manually.
have that OCD.
Yes.
That really want to make sure that things are saved. They
But
can
it
literally
does.
click the save button many times as they want to make themselves feel better. But if you notice, as I start going through this, if you watch that save button, as I'm clicking around, we're saving for you.
It's yeah.
Okay? The only time that I suggest that you hit save is you fill out that last field and you're going to close it out. By habit, I always hit save and I hit close and I hit finish and I'm done. Okay? That's the only time I really recommend you hit save.